there's something deep going on between the relationship between us and Hashem. And when we listen to Hashem, then Hashem does his part, remembering the good that he promised us and to give that to us. In the personal lives, in the totality of the Jewish story, because in the end, we're going to do tshuva. We're going to, whether it's towards whatever part of our lives, if we grew up not aware that there's a God and we found out that there's a God, if it's in this reincarnation, or reincarnation, if it's the next one, no matter how you slice it, one day, when it's all said and done, we are going to recognize the truth of Hashem and his mitzvahs, the opportunities we have to connect with him and to make him a part of our lives, and we're going to do that. And because we're going to do that, or when we're going to do that, or maybe an incentive, and if we do that, in our lives, we'll have Hashem doing his part, remembering the unbelievable bond. Covenant is the bond that he made with us, each and every one of us, through our forefathers originally, but with us individually as well. And the kindness that he promised us, we'll have all that. So essentially, if you want the good life, so the answer is, it depends on you. If, when, and because you're going to listen to Hashem, then Hashem is going to listen to you. Now, who gains when we both listen to each other? We obviously gain because Hashem is everything, has everything, and can do anything. And so if we really want blessings in our lives, we must make our effort. But how much is our effort without Hashem's stamp on our and support and help in our effort? Right? That's why King David says himself that I want God to be among my helpers. Listen to this unbelievable statement. Sounds a little bit odd. I want God to be among my helpers. Well, wait a minute. If I have God helping me, why do I need helpers? The answer is because he helps us through the helpers. We have to live in a real world. We have to be practical. We have to do our effort. We have to recognize that the people around me are there and I have to treat them the way I need to treat them, and they have to treat me properly, and we have to work together to help each other. Why did God make this world so popular? So we can fill the world with kindness, helping each other. But ultimately, God is behind all of that help as well, because God kind of hides himself in the reality that we perceive and in the world we exist in to give us that space to help each other. And Hashem is behind that help as well. And so if Hashem is not going to ultimately give our efforts blessing, then even with the helpers, and even with all of the huffing and puffing that we're going to do, success can be far from us. V'haya Ekev tishme'un. And it will be in the future tense. V'haya means, and it will be in the future. Ekev tishme'un. Now the word Ekev literally means heel. Okay, now what is the word Ekev doing here, which literally could be the heel of our body, but it also means the end. The end. And the Ekev, like for example, the end of times could be Ikvata, the Mashiach in Aramaic, the heels of time, the heel of time, the end of time. Now, the ends of time which Mashiach is coming now. So, but here Ekev can either mean if, when, or because. Because in the context of this verse, it's saying when you will listen. So when you will listen could be a good translation. If you will listen is a good translation, and also because you will listen. Now, there's a problem with the third option, small problem, maybe ideology-wise, is how could you say because you will listen? The future is not set, so how could we say because you will listen? Now, so the rabbis point out that Moshe is almost giving a prophecy that in the end we will listen. So that's why all three translations work: if, when, and because. And the more literal, I think, on the pshat level is because. Meaning, and it will be in the future because you will listen to the mishpatim, meaning the statutes, the laws of the Torah, these laws, ushmartem v'asitem otem, and you will guard them and you will fulfill them, you will do them. Therefore, as a result, because of that, v'shama Hashem Elohecha lecha, therefore God will guard for you the brit, the covenant that he made with Abraham, v'et chesed, and the kindness that he promised to our forefathers. That's the simple message. We're going to now go one step further. We have, I think, a beautiful message, a powerful message, and if you're going to say this over, you can change lives with this information. First, tell it to yourselves over and over again so it sinks in, and share it, because that's what Torah is. God shared his wisdom with us, and we're meant to share it with others. But in addition, we're going to take a look now at Rashi, who is the greatest, most famous influential commentators, teachers of Torah that ever lived. Second to Moshe Rabbeinu, I guess. Let's not get carried away over here. I'll be called a heretic for saying that Rashi was a greater Torah teacher than Moshe Rabbeinu. I got to be careful what we say. Okay, so let's look at Rashi now. So Rashi says like this: V'haya Ekev tishmeun, and it will be because you listen to the mitzvahs, right? He says, Im hamitzvot kalot she'adam dash be'akevav tishmeun. In English, that means if you will listen and keep the commandments that people take lightly and trample on with their feet, with their heels. When you listen to those mitzvot, then Hashem will then also, remember and be careful to keep His covenant and to fulfill the promises of kindness. So what Rashi essentially does is he changes the message of the verse. He alters it a bit. Now let's understand what he's doing, why he's doing it, and where is he getting this idea, this new idea of a particular category of mitzvot. So again, Rashi is referring right now in the commentary, and that's what we're going to be looking at from now on. From now on, this is what it means in this track, at least. When it says that because you're going to listen, or if you will listen to the mishpatim, those commandments are specifically commandments that people, because of the different mentality that they have and the way they perceive certain mitzvahs, they're the ones we look at and treat lightly. And unfortunately, as a result, trample upon them, meaning we kind of destroy them in some way. Because when you trample on something with your feet, it gets destroyed in some way. Okay, so we really mistreat those mitzvahs. That's how I would translate it. So if and when we listen to and are careful about and appreciate those commandments that we look at in our for whatever reasons where we are in our lives, why we look at in a way where we mistreat them and we trample them, when we listen to those mitzvahs, so Hashem will in turn remember His kindness and covenant that He made with us and fulfill that as well, which is again the great promises that He has all over the Torah are promises of unbelievable treatment that we get from Him. Okay, so that's what Rashi did to this. Now, why did Rashi do this? Where did he get this information from? So we'll start with the last first. He got this information from the sages. So it's essentially, he's only really reiterating what the sages themselves say in Midrash, in the allegoric, or not allegoric, but in the homiletical, allegoric, different methods of how to understand Torah. And they recorded this in books, like we said, Midrash Rabbah, Midrash Tanchuma, and it's re-recorded in other places as well. And so the sages did this. Now the question is, why are the sages doing this? Why are the sages taking a verse in the Torah and telling us that it's a reference to this particular type of mitzvah? Why? Because, again, there's an oral tradition that comes with the written word. And so there are different ways that this oral tradition is passed down and developed. And so the sages in the early period, we're talking about well more than 2,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago, throughout entire Jewish history, the oral tradition has been developed. And so this idea could go as far back as 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, even 4,000 some odd years, as this idea can go back. And what it means is that a particular sage with divine Ruach HaKodesh, meaning with divine communication, is using the methods, the principles of Torah, of the ways to open up and expand and interpret the Torah in a licensed way. And he is reaching this idea. And again, timing could be a part of why and when this is developed, because obviously we're human beings that are part of a real world that the Torah relates to. And so it could be that there was an issue like this where people were trampling on certain mitzvahs because maybe at a certain point in history they were farther away from the truth of every mitzvah. Meaning once upon a time we knew the truth and the depth of every mitzvah. But over time, maybe things got treated with less respect. And so they brought out this idea, which is connected to this verse, through using the principles of Torah, expounding on the Torah. And so they revealed it and made it officially an idea then. Now, that's the sages and how they get to this point that is, we're talking about light mitzvahs that we treat mitzvahs that we treat lightly. We're going to look now at Rashi and what he's doing here. And in order to appreciate that, we're going to talk about a conversation between Rashi and his grandson, what we call the Rashbam, right? He had no sons, he had only grandchildren, and some of them were great, great sages. Rabbi Tam was a grandson, Rashbam was a grandson, and so Rashbam records in his writings on Chumash, and again, I was told by a great rabbi that there's also a place or two in his comments on the Talmud where he discusses with Rashi, Rashi's Chumash interpretations, translations, whatever pirush. And so what comes out from the different things I've heard about these conversations between Rashi's grandson and Rashi, and obviously things that are apparent from looking at Rashi's comments and other great sages that comment on Rashi's comments, is this. Rashi has an opinion that the Torah is not a history book. Meaning, it's not only a history book. The purpose of the Torah wasn't to record, the details of, okay, Moshe was standing here and Aaron was standing there and they traveled from here to here. That's not the point, the essential point of the Torah. The essential point of the Torah is a conversation with God. It's God talking to us and teaching us, guiding us, helping us, holding on to us. And when we listen, we holding on to Hashem in return. And so Rashi wants us to understand that, the essential message in these words of Torah, they have their literal translation. Yes, Rashi's not negating the literal translation. And they have the basic, also pshat level, which can always sometimes be a little bit different than the literal translation. But they also have a dimension of divine communication that you have to tap into. It's a meeting of souls. It's the soul and its Father, Hashem, the Father of all souls, talking to you. My child, listen to me. Hear what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying. There's a superficial listening, and then there's an internal, essential, deep, that reaches the core of our being type of message that Hashem is trying to tell us constantly. And the more we build ourselves into a receptacle to contain that, to receive that, and to properly and clearly understand that, the more we have Hashem really with us, guiding us, talking to us, teaching us. So Rashi, for his part, leaves an eternal commentary that is applicable in every generation for us to glean from and understand, what is Hashem really, really trying to tell me right now in a verse written thousands of years ago. And so now listen to this Rashi again. Life is hard. Exile is hard and dark and full of torture and suffering and blindness. Imagine the blind leading the blind off a cliff and there's no swimming pool at the bottom. Like in these I like these action movies sometimes, once upon a time when I used to have time to see them. So you jump off a cliff and they want it to be exciting, so you think the guy, what's going to be, and there's a river underneath, so he survives. The good guy survives, of course, because he has to survive till the end. Now, there's no river on the bottom. Unfortunately, in this dark, confusing world, we can just walk right off a cliff without even realizing it, and not even realize what's waiting for us at the bottom is a very rough, hard landing. This is the idea of the breaking, and then having to try to pick ourselves up, and put together these broken pieces. And that's what our life becomes, a series of breaking, falling, dealing with damage control. And that's not what our life has to be. It can be a better life. It can be a much more productive life. And so let's take a look with that introduction to what Rashi is saying again. The Galus is going to be very, very long, because the word Ekev means the end, the end. At the end of all the ups and downs of life, at the end, when you're far away from Hashem, when you're far away from who you truly are inside, when you're so far from the light that you don't even believe there's a light anymore, when you're so far from yourself that you don't even know who you are anymore, and unfortunately, you don't even know who Hashem is anymore. Is there a Hashem? Is there not a Hashem? And with all the questions and confusion you have that is linked to all of this, why do I have to have so many bad days? When is a good day coming? So when you reach that point, so you at the same time can reach the point where you return from. Meaning when you hit rock bottom, so the only way is up. And when we reach those bottom times in our lives, we're open, we're ready for change. We're ready for a new type of light and to move up, to fly away, so to speak. And that's what this mitzvah this is hinting to. In life, there are things that I take lightly that are precious to me. Right? My actions, the people around me, the circumstances and opportunities around me. Things become jaded and very confused, and so I'm placing value in the wrong places. You know, and it's interesting. Look at how providence can help over here. I had an interesting thought today. I have no idea why or where it came from, but this was the thought. I think it was, again, we talked about movies and cliff scenes. This was, I think, a movie I saw a long time ago when I was starting to be Choser B'Tshuva, and I was in a very elated state, and I was perceiving a lot of things I felt in that movie. I think that there was a meteor that was about to hit Earth, and Earth was going, part of the Earth, at least the way they calculated it, was going to be destroyed, and part of it would be saved. And they were trying to very quickly figure out how they can safely store people and things. The funny thing was, I think if I'm not mistaken, they wanted to try to keep certain precious physical things that existed at the time. So they were making space for, obviously, people and for things. And again, if my memory is correct, it was in this movie. If not, so I'm creating a new analogy right now. Imagine that we know that the world is going to go through some kind of destructive thing like a flood. Imagine that could happen, right? A flood. And there's a way for us to be secluded from that flood. And we have to bring things into that ark. We'll call it an ark. I mean, has the word been used before? Can we trademark it? Anyways, so we're building to build this ark. There's going to be a flood, or we'll call it, make it more exciting for special effects. We'll get Steven Spielberg involved. I think I know a friend who knows a friend. Or we're building this underground, area because we have enough time to prepare for it. We have to bring things in it, and we have to decide what's valuable enough to bring in. Now, we want to be cultured, we want to be balanced, so we're going to make some room for maybe the most priceless collective paintings. We're going to make room for some technology things so we don't lose technology, and we're going to make room for some people. Now, let me ask you guys an honest question. If we're trying to create a space which is limited, and we have to put the most valuable things in that place, and so our lives and society can somehow rebuild itself again, like out of an ark or out of this hole in the ground, what's the most valuable things that we can find that we're going to fill that place up with till there's no more room? It's the people. There is no thing in this world that's more valuable than the person. And so if I'm calculating to put things together that are of value, and part of that calculation is using some of that space, even some of that space, for anything other than a person or what I'm going to need to reproduce food so we can survive. And again, I'm sure someone will tell me I'm a fool and I missed some courses in university. I missed all my courses in university except the filmmaking ones. And Lemaisa, we could argue about it after. But the point is, and whatever obviously core essential space, anything else you waste is a life you wasted. And if you haven't realized, that one life will produce thousands and thousands of lives. Because that's what life does. It produces and reproduces and reproduces. And so if your calculations and you're valuing a piece of metal or a piece of art, and you're giving it a value and you're even beginning to compare it to a human being, then that's how come a society will self-destruct. If that's the kind of mentality you have, that is going to produce a society that self-destructs and explodes and blows itself up. But when you understand that the value, the true value in this world are the people in them, and every one of them, we use and abuse people. We sell them and throw them around like we would treat our smartphone with more respect and more care than the human beings around us. It's sick, sad, and insane. But that's how far gone we can get. And so, at the end of the day, it's the people that will rebuild this world. And I'll even one step further, if you're going to schlep in, if we're at the stage where we value other things more than the people, then we're just going to rebuild another society that does the same thing and explodes itself again. That's another lesson. Okay? Anyway, so back to the point. We reach a point where we trample on the people in front of us and closest to us. Our family, our children, our parents, relatives, our friends, our neighbors. And you know who we could love? Some imaginary person on a screen that we will never meet and never talk to. That person we can love because he doesn't get into my space. He doesn't bother me. She doesn't bother me. Whatever, these famous figures today where everyone could become a social media star. That's not a real world. I mean, it is part of our real world, but when we take it in the wrong perspective, so we lose sight of what's really valuable and really right in front of me. And so the first lesson that Rashi is teaching us over here, through the sages, through Moshe, through Hashem, talking to us, telling us, you got it all wrong. I know it's dark. I made it dark out there. But that's a challenge also. If you can find your way in the dark, imagine the person you'll become. If you can find a way to unite each other together in that darkness, imagine what kind of people you'll become and what kind of a world you'll create for me to come back to. That's why it's so dark out there. To give us an opportunity to create our own light and share that light and light up the world. That's essentially what they're telling us over here. Every time we get it right, we bring Hashem into the world. We bring light into the world. We bring goodness into the world. And every time we get it wrong, unfortunately, we create more darkness.